actually drive them. H4. While they don't have anywhere near the range of a jet, helicopters are much smaller and maneuverable than planes, and are already some of the smallest aerial vehicles that can be flown. But the Gen Corporation from Japan has taken this to the next level with the design of the H4, which is the smallest helicopter ever made. Built to comply with ultralight vehicle rules, the H4 has an empty weight of just 154 pounds and has a single seat in an open cockpit that doesn't even have a windshield. It has 2 contra-rotating main rotors and 4 twin-cylindered engines that provide backup just in case one of them fails. The fuselage of the H4 is an open frame, and the rotors themselves have a diameter of just 13.1 feet. Amazingly, despite its size, the vehicle has a top speed of 120 miles per hour and can climb at a rate of 790 feet per minute. There are, however, safety concerns about flying such a small and unprotected helicopter. In one test flight, the pilot was injured when the craft struck a building, and as a result, there was never much demand for the H4 outside of Japan. Only a few prototypes were ever built, and the project was canceled in 2012. Number 9. Commuter Cars Tango. Based on statistics that showed 106 million commuters in the U.S. were driving to work each day with just one person in their car, Rick Woodbury founded his company, Commuter Cars, in 1998 to tackle just this problem. He realized that by designing a vehicle for just one person, it would significantly reduce fuel consumption, and meant that each car takes up a fraction of the space that normal designs do, which could potentially have a major impact on the number that can use a road at any one time, and the ability to park. The result of this vision was the Tango, an ultra-narrow electric car that's just 8 feet 5 inches long and 39 inches wide. Provided as kits to build at home, the first was delivered to George Clooney in August of 2005, and in return he featured in the company's promotional campaign. Although the plan was to make 100 every year, by 2008 only 10 had been produced at a cost of $121,000 each. And while the cost made them prohibitively expensive for most people, they did act as a proof of concept for miniature vehicles. In some places, it's legal to drive 2 of them side by side in a single lane, and they take up just a quarter of the typical parking space. The heavy battery packs also worked to the car's advantage because this gave it a low ground clearance and center of mass, which made it easier to control. Isetta. The Isetta was one of the first microcars to ever go into mass production, and after being designed in Italy, it was built under license by manufacturers in different countries like Velam in France and BMW in Germany. At just 7.5 feet long and 4.5 feet wide, its unusual egg shape and windows led it to be given the nickname as the Bubble Car, which in turn would go on to inspire further car designs over the following decades. Surprisingly, the Isetta was the top-selling single-cylinder car in the world in 1955, with more than 161,000 of them being sold, with people mainly being attracted to the unusual vehicles because of their incredible fuel economy. Powered by a 236cc engine, it was able to achieve 78 miles per gallon, but this came at a cost. The Isetta took more than 30 seconds to accelerate from 0 to 31 miles per hour, and it maxed out with a top speed of just 47 miles per hour. The Isetta remains by far the most popular microcar to have ever been produced, and proved that not everyone cares about speed, comfort, and style. Number 7. Cereal 4x4. With increasing pressure on prices for produce, farmers have to grow large numbers of fields worth of crops to turn a profit. When it's time to harvest, they need to use bigger and bigger machines to do the job in the same amount of time, so most new tractors and harvesters are much larger than they have ever been before. That's not the case with the Cereal 4x4 though, which is actually the smallest production tractor in the world. Ford, the company behind the vehicle, realized that not all farms were made up of huge fields, and there were some who grew higher value products on a much smaller scale, and for them a miniature tractor is ideal. It has a width of just 25.5 inches, which means it can easily everything for comfort. On calm days, he can open the hatch to stretch his legs a bit, but he can still control every element of the yacht when his hatch is closed, meaning he won't have to expose himself to the elements when a storm moves in. The mast itself doubles as a ventilation pipe. There are inflatable ballasts around the edge that can provide extra stability when needed. The plan is for Kent to sail this boat a distance of 4,000 miles from the Canary Islands to Florida in a journey that's expected to last 3 months. Number 4. Eshelman Sport Car Deluxe. Following the Second World War, Cheston Lee Eshelman set up a factory in Baltimore where he produced small tractors, scooters, and cars. He saw a gap in the market that he wanted to fill, and the result was the Sports Car Deluxe. This was far from being your ordinary kind of car, and was actually advertised in the back of magazines like Popular Mechanics with 2 major selling points. It was able to travel 70 miles on a gallon of fuel and cost just a fifth of the price of other vehicles. It came equipped with an air-cooled Briggs & Stratton engine, a centrifugal clutch, 4-wheel mechanical brakes, and even a chrome-plated rocket side trim. The catch, though, was its size, and despite having room for a driver and passenger, it still only measured 64 inches long, 36 inches wide, and 32 inches tall. While it was definitely able to achieve a fuel economy that was promised by the company, the Sports Car Deluxe had a top speed of just 30 miles per hour. But admittedly, it felt frightening enough to actually drive it that fast, and it wouldn't have been safe at all to try to go any faster. Just in case there was any confusion, the accelerator pedal was marked with Go, and the brake was marked with Stop. It came with a rubber floor mat, and a dashboard had a choke cable and a recoil starter. Worryingly, though, the only way you could turn the car off was by reaching through a hole in the engine compartment and pulling the kill switch. Number 3. Unity 1. Unity is a Swedish company dedicated to designing affordable electric cars. And as a proof of concept, they're investing huge amounts in turning the city of Lund into a high-tech electric city. Their central idea is to create a zero-emission, lightweight car, and one of the first models they released was the Unity 1. The 2-seater vehicle is designed to be used like a smartphone. With an inbuilt voice assistant and constant connectivity, it's also made to be incredibly compact. And while it fits a driver and passenger, they don't sit next to each other like in other conventional designs, but the passenger sits behind. This has allowed the vehicle to be just 126 inches long, 67 inches wide, and 59 inches tall. But despite this, it's the rear-wheel drive motors that give it a top speed of 81 miles per hour and a top range of 150 miles an hour in one charge. Significant effort has gone in to ensure it can be recharged in a reasonable time. And the manufacturers state that by using DC fast charging, the battery can be filled to 80% capacity in just 25 minutes. Unity hopes that the One is the future of urban transport, as its small size means it'll be easily maneuverable and can park in much smaller spaces than other cars. As well as being fully connected, it also contains a series of features that make it as modern as any other car, such as a sensor suite, automatic safety technologies, and automatic parking. It's also much more aerodynamic than similarly sized and priced vehicles, which means the handling and acceleration are best in class. Number 2. The Big Submarine. In a lot of ways, submarines are some of the most difficult vehicles to design. They have to be as efficiently shaped as an airplane, but need far more powerful engines to propel them through the water. And instead of naturally returning to the surface, mechanisms have to be installed to ensure that in worst-case scenarios, the people on board have a chance of returning to safety. Military submarines are huge vehicles with room for hundreds of people on board. And even the smallest commercial subs, like the ones used for scientific exploration, have some serious bulk to them to allow for observation in the marine environment and to provide enough strength for them to withstand the pressures that are exerted on them. This doesn't mean that submarines have to be large, though, and the smallest functioning one that was ever made was surprisingly minuscule. Known as Big, it was built by Piers Poulin from Canada and was barely big enough for him to squeeze into. It currently holds the record for the smallest submersible to ever be driven by an onboard pilot, after Poulin proved its seaworthiness in 2005. The dive happened in Memphremag Lake in Magog, Quebec, Canada, in June of that year, and saw Poulin submerged to a depth of more than 16 feet for around 43 minutes. Amazingly, the vessel had a displacement of just 1,366 pounds, was highly maneuverable, and was able to ascend and descend on its own power without any difficulties. He was also able to drive at 1,500 feet from where he started during the dive, which was proof enough that this was a viable design. Of course, with very little in terms of viewing window, there was not a whole lot you can do with the submarine. But Poulin says that one day he plans on revisiting the idea to hopefully create one that's a legitimate means of personal transportation. Number 1. Peel P50. Produced between 1962 and 1965, the Peel P50 was the smallest road-legal production car to have ever been made. It was created by the Peel Engineering Company from the Isle of Man and was designed for use as a city car, with advertisements focusing on how it was capable of seating one adult and a shopping bag. In 1963, it was sold for the equivalent of $8,500 in today's currency, and they were available in white, red, or blue. At just 52.8 inches long, 38.6 inches wide, and 39.4 inches tall, there was hardly any room inside for anything apart from the driver, and those who had one said they felt frighteningly close to the road and other cars as they traveled. The Peel P50 had just one door on the left-hand side, and one windscreen wiper and one headlight. They came with a 49cc DKW engine, which gave them a top speed of 37 miles per hour. And while they had a 3-speed manual transmission, they didn't have a reverse gear, leading to the somewhat comical sight of drivers stepping out of their vehicle, lifting it up to turn it around, and then getting back in to drive. With just 3 wheels, it was road legal in the UK and the US, and in Europe it's technically classified as a quadricycle because of its size and power, which means a P50 can be driven by someone without a full driving license. Only around 50 of the original models were ever made, with 5 thought to have survived to this day. But in 2011, a company revived the design with the inclusion of modern features. Now offering an electric version, around 15 are sold each year, with the fully electric design being particularly popular in the US, where it satisfies emission regulations.